Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. Chad is back tomorrow. I'm thrilled to be with you. Happy Monday to everybody out there. Hope you had a great weekend. Hopefully Father's Day was a good time. Let's get right to something that also happened over the weekend and was a good time, certainly for the President of the United States. Although actually, as I say that, I believe it was a good time when he was on stage. There are rumors that he was quite mad on the way back from Tulsa, that the crowd was not what he expected. And there's a lot of reasons why I guess the crowd for his rally might not have been as big as projected. There's a bunch of people taking some sort of claim, some sort of, like, that was us, that we're the ones that did it. They're taking credit on social media for asking for tickets with no intention of going to the rally, which is why the projection might have been so high. But anyway, let's go to Donald Trump. President Donald Trump, once again in rally form, one of his favorite forms to exist in. Here is the start of that rally, because there is a lot of excitement, whether it's 6,000, 18, 20,000, what could the crowd could have been at capacity. There are people that very much enjoy, very much love to be a part of these things. And I'll say this as I get into all this audio: no matter how you feel about President Donald Trump, no matter if you like him or dislike him, and I have a couple clips that I'll play toward the tail end of this that'll definitely demonstrate this point, the man can be funny. The man can definitely 100% for sure be funny. I think if you use that from just any form, from a stand-up form of judging whatever, there are jokes that he makes about the ramp controversy and the drinking water controversy that are real things. And honestly, part of it's even visual, so maybe I'll do a better job of describing it than just playing it. But the man can be funny. But let's hear what it sounds like to kick off a rally in Tulsa with people there that are very excited that he's back in this arena.
So we begin, Oklahoma, we begin. Thank you, Oklahoma. And thank you to Vice President Mike Pence. We begin our campaign.
They just start singing for the guy. They're that excited. He said nothing really yet, and then this is the crowd reaction. That continues for a bit. Let me skip ahead.
We begin our campaign, and I just want to thank all of you. You are warriors. I've been watching the fake news for weeks now, and everything is negative. Don't go, don't come, don't do anything. Today it was like, I've never seen anything like it. You are warriors. Thank you. We had some very bad people outside. They were doing bad things.
So there is a accusation. I don't know how well it's been documented or proven, but I know that it did exist to some form. I don't know the amount of protesters that were outside the rally, because numbers, depending on what media organization you ask, are a little all over the place. Some say it's a smaller group of protesters. Some say it was rather big. But what he means by people being doing bad things outside is they were actually preventing some people from attending this. They were some of the protesters were certainly provoking the Trump supporters that were trying to attend the rally, and we had some drama going on, which is, I guess, not totally shocking and surprising. This is kind of the MO now for the way this sort of thing goes. But there were agitators, to say the very least. But the rally was not the capacity that the president expected it to be, so that they had plans, I guess, for an overflow crowd, and they were going to set up monitors and different things, so a lot of people could have partaken that wouldn't have been able to get into the arena. That was not an issue. Let's hear a little bit more from the opening part of the rally.
I stand before you today to declare the silent majority is stronger than ever before. 5 months from now, we're going to defeat sleepy Joe Biden. Boy, does he get a pass from these people, huh?
That is actually true, too, as well, by the way. To kick off the rally and talk about the difference in media coverage is, I think, a winning point for the current president of the United States, because the coverage is sort of ridiculous. And he actually goes on to point that out as far as the rally coverage compared to other things that he's seen in the news recently. Here is the president on the rally coverage.
I'll have one of these days where I'm hit left and right, like even this great event. What if you could have seen outside, or if you could have heard the reports, oh, it's COVID, it's this. By the way, it's a disease, without question, has more names than any disease in history.
He is about to be criticized for what comes up next in this. Not only does he talk about how the fear of the spread of COVID-19, which is, I will say this, as a person being responsible while talking into a microphone, that's not completely illegitimate to be afraid of potential spread of virus at big gatherings, whether it be a peaceful protest with the right reasons at heart, or if it's a rally for a president. There are spikes in cases. I'm just telling you the news. I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life, but there are spikes in cases in a few different places. I think even the NBA is now afraid of its startup, or at least worried about its startup plan because of the spikes going on in Florida. But the president will start mentioning names of the coronavirus, at least according to him. And there are multiple names for this. And he uses one that he's been criticized for often, and one that a lot of people have determined or have accused him of being racist for using. Here we go.
I can name Kung Flu. I can name 19 different versions of names.
I don't know if it's the desire to demonstrate his complete separation from the things that are said about him by people that he certainly disagrees with, by all the media that loves to attack the president. There are times, though, where he pushes, and certainly in rally form, as far up to the line or beyond the line, according to a lot of those press that hate him. It's just a thing he does. It's part of what makes these maybe must-watch television for people on all sides of the aisle, whether you like the guy or hate the guy. And this has been true of people in all walks of life, not just presidents, but media people. Sometimes the people who hate you listen to you more than the people who like you, which is a true thing. And so if you missed the rally, I don't know. And actually, the Trump campaign did also brag a lot about the amount of individuals that watched this via either online streaming and or television. So maybe a whole bunch of people still didn't go. Maybe only 6,000-ish people attended, which would be about a fourth, maybe more than a fourth of the capacity available at the venue that they had chosen. Then, you know what? So here, let me just move on to what I think is the most comedic part of the rally, and part that I laughed. I laughed out loud multiple times while watching this, and I wonder if you would too. The president was criticized for the way in which he walked down a ramp and drank a glass of water. Those are true things. He was criticized a lot in a bunch of different places for his inability, as some saw it, to successfully walk down a ramp. Although he didn't fall, he did take it slow. He took a long time to get down a ramp after giving a speech and after saluting a lot of different individuals from the military. And then he also drank a glass of water in a way that the media didn't love. But here is his take on that situation. And this is honestly the number one reason that we need more rallies. And I'm not saying that in a time of COVID-19 trying to be unfair. I understand. If you don't want to go, if you're afraid for illness reasons, don't go. And I know that a lot of people would say it's irresponsible of the president to tempt so many to go, and maybe that's not important. But look, as far as the amount of people that seem to want to be there, wanted to support the president, it's hard. This is a big deal. Like, okay, let me take a second back, because I wanted to play this funny audio, but now I feel like I trapped myself in a more serious part of this conversation, because there is going to be criticism on all sides here, and certainly defenses of that criticism as to whether or not these rallies are appropriate in the time of a health pandemic. And I believe in my heart that if you are worried about the illness, you should not go. And I actually think that I might err on the side of caution. So I will say that too. I will be honest about that for me personally, I may not attend something like a rally right now. I may not attend a lot of things right now, just for the most to be as cautious as possible. And that is, there's nothing wrong with that. Some people might think there is. There's nothing wrong with going that direction. At the same time, presidential campaigns are one of the most important political things that happen in our society. And so there are people that feel incredibly passionate about supporting this man, and they'd like to see him speak. And the rallies are entertaining. I will say that for sure. So I don't know that we should tell people unilaterally that you cannot go to this thing, that it should not exist, if the belief in this president is so strong that they'd like to risk health issues in order to go. And, you know, they are taking a lot of precautions. They've bragged about a lot of those precautions to protect those individuals going as much as they can. which is something I think we're going to see a lot of places in a lot of different walks of life in the future to do as much as we can to prevent these spikes that we're seeing. All right, anyway, let's get out of the serious. Let's get back to the silly. President Trump talking about walking down a ramp and being criticized in the media for it.
My final salute, I said, thank goodness, thank you very much. But think of it, so essentially almost 600 times. Now, the general says, sir, are you ready? I said, I'm ready, General. Where are we going now? You have to understand, I left early in the morning to get there. Now it's sort of late in the afternoon. A lot of these fakers were with us, so they know.
He's pointing at the media as he says a lot of the fakers who went with us.
He said, sir, we can now leave the stage. I say, great, General, let's go. I'll follow you. And he goes like this.
He starts to duck waddle while he's on the stage, and people just love it, by the way. I can't tell you how I know it's radio. I know you can't see it. But just the fact that a current sitting president of the United States is comfortable enough as a media personality as well to waddle on the stage and make fun of himself. I mean, he's making fun of himself and the criticism he got for his inability to get down a ramp smoothly. He got down. He didn't fall. He didn't make it smoothly. But it's surreal to kind of see that happen.
And the stage was higher than this one. And the ramp was probably 10 yards long. I say, General, now you got to understand, I have the whole Corps of Cadets looking at me. And I want them to love their president. I did this big thing. I love them. I love them. They're incredible. And they do. I said, General, I've got myself a problem, General. Because I'm wearing leather bottom shoes, which is good if you're walking on flat surfaces. It's not good for ramps. And if I fall down, look at all those press back there. Look at that.
I got to be honest here as well. If he had fallen, that would have been covered, and it's hard to imagine because of how much it was covered that he slowly made it down the ramp. That would have been covered a lot. You would have seen a lot of people taking joy in a guy falling over, which, okay, I'm not totally judging there. If you see somebody fall and they get up fine, it's usually kind of funny. But two, just probably saying things to the narrative of, man, the guy can't make it down a ramp. There was no win here. And let's totally get in the honesty tree for a second. If you've ever worn fancy shoes, and I have, they are slippery. That's true. I'm not trying to totally 100% say that I know for sure that this was a very slick situation the president was in, and that he certainly wasn't struggling because maybe, as he said as well, it was a long day. He woke up early. He was in the sun for a while. But it is true. I mean, come on. If you've ever worn fancy shoes and got on the wrong surface, you certainly can struggle, like we saw the president do a little while back.
And this was a steel ramp. You all saw it because everybody saw it. This was a steel ramp. It had no handrail. It was like an ice skating rink. And I said, General, I have a problem. And he didn't understand that at first. I said, there's no way. You understood? I just saluted almost 600 times. I just made a big speech. I sat for other speeches. I'm being baked. I'm being baked like a cake.
He said that he was outside of the sun getting baked like a cake. And there's no way he's going to make it down that ramp well after sitting through all the other speeches he's been through. He's going to struggle, and it's because of the perfect situation that exists right here. It's a perfect mix of stuff. All right, let's hear a little bit more from the president on the ramp situation.
And I was really bent over, too. I didn't like that. I didn't like this picture. This picture, I'm sure, will be an ad by the fakers. So I was bent over, right?
He bends over on the stage, and people love that. And he continues. He's bent over.
And then we finally reached almost the end. And the fake news, the most dishonest human beings, they cut it off. You know why? Because when I was 10 feet short, I said, General, I'm sorry. And I ran down the rest, right? I looked very handsome. That was the only good thing.
I think that's funny. I don't know if you think that's funny. I think that's funny. He congratulates himself for the way in which he looks. He says that he ran down the ramp, and you didn't see it on many of the news places that covered it. And that's actually true. I did go back and try to find footage There is him moving quite a bit quicker to get down the tail portion of that ramp. And let's just be completely honest. The president of the United States was in a situation that could have been embarrassing, that a lot of people saw as embarrassing for the way he handled it, although he did not fall over. And at his first rally back, when speaking to his supporters, he took 5 minutes criticizing and making fun of himself to the delight of the individuals who support him. Yes, in a bunch of ways, the current president of the United States is utterly different than anyone who's been in that office before. There's a lot of things he says that people don't understand. There's a lot of things he puts on social media that people think he doesn't need to put there. Certainly even his own staff would love to not have it there. But the appeal of this guy, if you want to figure out what it is, the appeal of our current president, it is this. It is this exactly. It is his ability and his willingness to be a regular person, and maybe at times a exaggerated person. I've explained him before as the guy at the bar that you overhear. Maybe you smile and laugh about at times, but you don't always think that you'd go out and say the same things you just heard him say. Even if you agree with them, these aren't things you're always going to be as comfortable saying as he was. And yet that's who he is. This is part of who he is. And this might be, with all the polls, all the information you're seeing in the world as far as, just how behind he may be to Joe Biden, this is the way I think that he knows he can come back. Quick break and a lot more on the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson. Went on a bit of a rant in the first part of this half hour, so I have very little time now. And I kind of am tempted to have this be the only moment when I talk about John Bolton, because that would be awesome, to give him that little media coverage when he had a whole big giant interview last night would be thrilling. And yet I can't do it because that book's probably must read. I think it's definitely must read. And more importantly, John Bolton. I got a lot of stuff, a lot of audio to play. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. That was the quickest segment ever, but I got a lot more coming up throughout the day.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show for one more day. Chad is back with you tomorrow. For anyone worried, don't worry. Chad is fine. He'll be back. He just deserved the days off, so he's been out. Let me start now, unfortunately, by talking about John Bolton. And not unfortunately because I truly don't believe everything that gets mentioned in this. It's just I think this is a attention and a financial decision that he's made to release a book. I don't think it has anything to do with whether or not he actually is trying to protect America, protect the political environment that he's supposed to care about. It's nothing. And honestly, that makes me then distrust a whole lot of this book. And yet I think I'm going to have to read it. And I know you're probably going to have to read it. It has been leaked. I shouldn't probably say much about that. So I'm not encouraging you to go anywhere and get anything. But I think there was a media report that the book is somehow available. And if you know a tech person in your family, you might be able to figure it out. But anyway, let's do this. My favorite part of the interview last evening, during which John Bolton sat down with ABC News, Martha Raddatz did grill him on the one thing that so many of us are curious about. Why? Why do it this way and not, I don't know, provide testimony during an impeachment trial, which might have been way more valuable if you believe the things you believe and if you know the things you know factually. Why not do it under oath? Why not do it in front of people that might be able to take action based on it? Why do it via a book? That is a question that she threw at John Bolton. He did not necessarily answer it, but kind of sort of field it. Here's what that sounded like.
You were a star witness to something the president was on trial for, something you say you now find deeply disturbing, possibly criminal, Yet you felt no obligation at all to tell the American people about this, whether in testimony on the Hill or an interview or a statement or anything?
I was fully prepared if I got a subpoena. I think the way the House advocates of impeachment proceeded was badly wrong. I think it was impeachment malpractice.
You could have been that person providing that testimony.
And it would not have made any difference.
How can you say that? How do you know?
I love the fact. I'm not going to praise many reporters all the time to the extent that I'm about to praise Martha. I love the fact that she actually seemed upset visually and said that the way she said it. How do you know? How do you know that if you didn't provide this testimony the appropriate way and not the money-grabbing way, that you would have changed the narrative? Because he will continue to point out, John Bolton, that it was a very partisan impeachment, and that's utterly true. No one, I think that's lost on no one is the way I want to say that. But at the same time, why wouldn't you try? And he's going to compare it to Watergate again. I think Watergate for a long time, if you remember, it felt really partisan until you got to the point that the evidence just overwhelmed the desire for some to protect essentially their side of the aisle. And the evidence here, if everything that's in this book, and there's a lot of things in this book, but if they're accurate, I think you get to a certain point where you start to say, I mean, it's not, I didn't even pull the clip, but there's the threatening to kill journalists or want to have journalists killed. That is a threat that John Bolton claims the president made and or joked about at some time. Well, John Bolton would be aware of the things the president is saying. That is surreal as far as information goes. Let's continue with the defense as to why you don't testify, Mr. Bolton.
Lines were made up on Capitol Hill.
But you're also saying, had they looked at, it was too narrow. They were just looking at Ukraine, and they should have looked at all these things that you're outlining in the book. If they didn't know about those things from you, how could they do that?
Because an impeachment process that was serious and not partisan, like Watergate, would have taken the time to cover all these areas. They failed utterly to accomplish what they wanted. In fact, they made things worse.
They failed because you didn't show up and tell them what to go look at if you're telling the truth, which, by the way, I want to pause for a second as I cover this to say I don't really believe any of this part. I don't believe that there's all these hidden things that weren't discovered and that it was partisan nature that forced the inability to find those. What are you talking about? I think Democrats did everything they could to find every single possible potential indictable and also just whatever accusation they could throw his way. So if you had real information, things that would have made it feel way less partisan, why not provide it there? It makes no sense to say it wouldn't have helped. It makes no sense to say that this wouldn't have been beneficial at all. But let's hear him continue with that line of thought.
Because their strategy fitted with the Trump political strategy. Keep it narrow and move it fast.
You could have told these stories when you were in the White House or when the impeachment trial was going on, and you chose instead to do it in a book.
Because I didn't think the Democrats had the wit or the political understanding or the reach to change what for them was an exercise in arousing their own base so that they could say, we impeached Donald Trump. The Democrats can pursue whatever policy they want. They don't dictate to me how best to bring this to the attention of the American people.
But you can certainly understand why your critics say, why didn't he come forward before? Why is he making a profit on this now?
You know, it has nothing to do with making a profit.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. And here, that's the point I wanted to stop that at. If it really has nothing to do with making a profit, Mr. Bolton, I ask you to donate all the money you're going to make off this book to something. I don't know what it's to. I heard that he's not going to vote either way in the next election. He's going to write in somebody. So why don't you just throw money at that campaign? If you really believe there's somebody out there we don't know about that deserves to be president of the United States and you're going to write in their name in the upcoming ballot, just give all of your money to their political campaign and or just throw it to any of the tremendously needy charities right now that exist because of the world in which we're living as far as the economy goes, civil unrest, anything, any version. Just go. If it wasn't about money, if you truly wanted to protect the public, the American people, and you just didn't believe Democrats had any ability to do that, which that's fine. I think a lot might agree there. Then what you should do is not make money off of it. If this was the only way to make sure that your narrative was untainted. The only way is to take control of it. That's fine. But make that a reality and make $0. And I'm only saying that because he's claiming the money doesn't matter. I don't care about people making money. And there's so many books. I mean, the president has a niece that's going to try to write a book. This is just, it's surreal right now. If you've even come across Donald Trump in the last, 8 years, you might have a book on the newsstands at some point in the near future, and you might get a pretty sweet deal for it. Even if maybe you said hi to him from afar one time, you might be able to write a bunch of things in a book and sell a bunch of copies. And that's the world in which we live. But if it really doesn't matter, Mr. Bolton, if the money really isn't important, then please go ahead, donate it all to whatever you think is of value and just not make any money off of it. Let's hear the last little part of that.
It has everything to do with making sure that the constitutional responsibilities that are accorded the different branches of government are carried out the right way.
We will believe that when you make no money off of this. That is the moment and the only moment in which I'll believe that. I saw this as well as far as things on TV that I enjoyed quite a bit. Chris Wallace was grilling Simone Sanders, who is Biden's campaign manager, about the reason why Joe Biden hasn't done any real interviews and doesn't. Now, obviously, you see a senior advisor, of Simone Sanders. You see first, as far as the conversation's going, Donald Trump is giving a rally, and obviously he's getting criticized for that. And Joe Biden, way too good to do things like that. But so why not do any sort of live conversations? Why are you doing predominantly taped, predominantly on your own, speaking to the media? And we all know the actual answer why. And I would love it if Simone had just said that. I might be more willing to listen to more things said on that side if when Chris Wallace goes, hey, why isn't he giving interviews? And Simone goes, well, Joe, can't really trust him to say the right thing at the right time. We're going to have to make sure that this is really, really controlled. But here, this is part of that conversation.
Simone, you got to let me in.
Oh, I actually forgot. I love this. I kept this at first. There were a bunch of times that Chris would ask things to Simone, and she would just ignore the thing he asked and then just go on a rant. And then eventually Chris had to try to rope her back in and be like, I'm asking questions. Can you answer them? This is when Chris hits his breaking point.
Simone, you got to let me in here.
The folks out there, you made this point, Chris. The folks out there protesting, they should be able to get a coronavirus test.
Simone, I don't want to get into a fight with you, but you got to let me ask a question.
Able to do so.
Simone, all right. So here's the question I'm going to ask you. Joe Biden has. You talk about him being on the campaign trail, but I think most people have been struck that he stayed in his Delaware home mostly, and in large part since March. He has not held a news conference, either in person or online, for 80 days, almost 3 months. Why not?
Well, Chris, to be clear, Vice President Biden does interviews, takes questions from the press regularly. And yes, in March, we have adjusted to this new normal like most people in America. We have been campaigning virtually, but just because we are campaigning virtually does not mean we are not meeting actual voters across the country. Vice President Biden.
Yeah, I'm done with that answer now. That's the point when I'm done with the answer. We all know the reason why. We all know that in your head, you want to say out loud, Joe Biden does a lot of things that we like on our side of the aisle. One thing he doesn't do well, speak without a tremendous amount of planning going into it. And honestly, if he ad-libs for a second, odds are he went the wrong direction. That is the truth, which is why these debates that the president now wants to have 4 of and Joe probably wants to have 0 of are kind of interesting and important. We will see where that goes. We will see how that all plays out. This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. I might not always be capable of speaking, but I enjoy trying. Joe Biden, you probably should get on that bandwagon. More after this.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in for the day. Chad is back tomorrow. Much deserved vacation for him. Let's move on to, I know that a lot of people agree, a lot of people disagree. The point in and of itself is certainly one for debate and one I'm not really going to have on the show because it's not as fun to me as the second part of this story. But the first part, Columbus, Ohio, likely to change its name. Actually, at least likely to remove a lot of the Christopher Columbus things that exist within the city, a statue, because of course, there's a lot of upset. There's a lot of anger as far as what Christopher Columbus may be tied to and the fact that he's one of many now, quote, problematic people that exist from our past history, at least as far as some are concerned. And a lot of people right now are going the way of, if it's problematic, let's get rid of it completely right now so that we don't ever have to deal with trying to tell people that it's something that's our history and we're going to keep it for that reason. Anyway, that's the debate. I'm not having that debate. I don't really care for this moment what side of the aisle you're on there. What I care about is the petition online to change the name of Columbus, Ohio to Flavortown in honor of Guy Fieri. To me, that's hilarious. And it doesn't have to be Columbus, but Guy Fieri, I guess, being from there makes it make sense there. If we can name any place after celebrities and we go Flavortown for a Guy Fieri, that to me is a great move. I would visit Flavortown. I'm not likely to go to Columbus for any sort of extended vacation, but I mean, come on. How do you not go to Flavortown if it exists in the world? Although it would be tremendously disappointing, I'll just say this, for Flavortown to be a place like Columbus, Ohio. It really should be a much more flavor-filled location, a lot more fancy food eating available to you than if you go there. They'd have to open up just a crap ton of additional restaurants all over the place. But the fact that it's got like 20 million or so supporters to it, something to that effect, I think it's got a lot of supporters. It's hilarious. This idea to me is, if we can go this way, like, look, if we all have problems with some of the changes that might happen in our society to appease those that are very upset with a lot of what's gone on, some of which very, very valid, some of which seems to me and a lot of people to be overstepping that situation and just turning in a completely different, a lot weirder complaints. As we go through all that, if we can go this way, if we can err on the side of jokes, I will always be a fan of jokes. I don't care sometimes about things more than I probably should. I'm probably being a little bit too silly, but let's all be honest. The odds of you going on a vacation to Columbus, Ohio, probably not incredibly high. Maybe a little high, depending on who you are. And I love that there's someone listening somewhere like, that's ridiculous. It's our vacation spot of choice. We love it. But if it's Flavortown, the odds have to go up a bunch. Now, I also saw this. I've talked a lot about Gen Z and millennials while I've been in on this show. I'm a millennial, so I guess that makes sense. And Gen Z hates millennials. That's something I've spoken about a bit. Gen Z is the only demographic that's 100% ready, or, well, the most ready, I shouldn't say 100%, the most ready to go back to movie theaters when they open. A new poll says that 60% of people 25 and under are willing to go to a movie as soon as it's available. That is the highest. Millennials come in next at 49%, and then it continues to dip down from there. Obviously, the theater, one of the places that'll struggle a lot with social distancing. I thought that was really interesting. For every situation, for every world in which the newest generation seems to be very much on we're accepting everyone, we're being as woke as humanly possible. The fact that they're not being woke about protecting their health and they're going back to the movie theater in force is somewhat interesting. Although I should say that the numbers aren't that hugely different. The 60% certainly higher than the rest. But if you get to a Gen Xer, it's 42%. If you get to a Boomer, it's 37%. A lot of people want the movie theaters to come back. 1 in 3, essentially, even for the Boomers, would like to see a movie sometime soon. And I love going to the movies, so I get this idea. I get wanting to do that. And, buy the popcorn and sit a few seats down from somebody else. And if you feel safe in that world, that's okay. That's also something you're allowed to do. I just thought it was funny, and I like the headline, Gen Z, only demographic. And they're honestly, younger people are the ones you see at a lot of the places that are just overrun with humans, a lot of the beaches. This is predominantly young people, and that could be part of the messaging, that young people are not as seriously ill as people in at-risk groups, so maybe that's why you're seeing a lot of this. But for every situation in which you come across someone who's telling you you're not woke enough, I find it interesting that sometimes maybe they're going a different way. You know what else I want to talk about? Pamela Anderson. That is a conversation I want to have today. I probably can't do it now. I'll do it in a little bit. She gave an interview recently. You'd be surprised what she was talking about and what she was considering as far as certain questions being asked to Pamela Anderson, former Playboy Playmate, famous human, because I'll save it. I'll get to that in a bit. That's called the tease in the business. There's a lot going on. Craig Collins is filling in on the Chad Benson Show. I'm thrilled to be here. I also saw some news about Kurt Cobain and a guitar that he sold. Well, not he, obviously, but a guitar that was sold that he owned online. It sold for a lot of money, and it was used on an MTV appearance, so I'll talk about that. Of course, I'll talk about news of the day. coming up in the future. There's a lot of news of the day that's still tremendously important. And I guess more over the weekend news. You got John Bolton. You got Donald Trump giving a rally. You got a bunch of conversations going on. And I don't know how you feel about the rally, honestly. So I'd love to hear from you. If you want to send us a message on our social media pages, we'll try to get to some of those. Send us on Chad Benson's Facebook, Chad Benson on Twitter. You can actually send to me too, Craig Collins Show at Facebook.com. And just let us know what you think about the rally in general. I want to know. I know that the opinions are all over the place as far as the appropriateness of that rally. But obviously, a lot of people who support this president feel passionate about the fact that he had one, and it was lowly attended. That was the risk, right? You do a rally in a time of COVID-19, you risk not having a lot of people show up. And I know it might be frustrating when you see ticket sales in the millions and then only 6,000 or so people actually in attendance. But that's the health reality, the world in which we live. So that was the risk going in. It'll be interesting to see if a lot more of these rallies get scheduled and happen on that side of the aisle. But we'll talk about all that. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. Thrilled to be with you on a Monday. Stick right here.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson. Happy Monday to everybody out there. Start of another glorious week, I'm assuming. Chad is back tomorrow. I have more John Bolton audio to get to. John talking about the president in general. But before that, I'm gonna flip the script. I'm not supposed to do it this way, but I'm gonna talk about Pamela Anderson first. Pamela Anderson, who I teased topic-wise, never as a human, just a few mere moments ago. Pamela Anderson gave an interview to Fox News, and in that conversation, she was asked if she'd ever do Playboy again. Playboy right now is a digital only and not a print magazine, but it'll be back in print form in 2021. Their CEO says, so don't worry about that. But she was asked if she'd ever do it again, if she'd ever, pose in the nude in the magazine. And here was her response to that. I don't have the audio. I don't think that was necessary. But she said, oh, boy, I don't think so. But I've said that 10 times ago. So she made a joke about how, man, that's an interesting question you're asking me there, friend. And then she goes, oh, gosh, wouldn't that be ridiculous as far as her being in the magazine again? I don't know if people remember this. I'm not saying that I do per se. It is mentioned in this article, so I didn't need to check my brain to see if I remembered it. But she was on the cover just a few years ago. So she has done it somewhat recently. Pamela Anderson is now 52 years old. She probably has had some work done more recently. I mean, obviously, okay, that's the most ridiculous sentence I've ever said on radio. Pamela Anderson has probably had some work done. We all know there's been extensive things, but I mean more recently. I don't know that it would be the same person that people remember being on the magazine. I guess she's been on the cover a total of 14 different times. While the Baywatch alum is in no hurry to shoot another pictorial, she says she will always appreciate the publication's content and their vibe. And so she's, maybe going to be interested. She also then talked about Hef, who she referred to as the DNA of Playboy. He'd say that this is the reason I made the magazine was for a girl like you. Apparently, that's why Hugh Hefner originally put this publication out. Pamela Anderson, someone who's interested in the world and art and fashion and people and music and just hungry for information and living a sexy lifestyle. That is what Hugh Hefner told Pamela Anderson is the reason he made Playboy. For people like her, just nice ladies who are interested in world travel, art, and fashion. That's all it was about. People who like music and, are hungry for information. Nothing else. No other reason you made that publication. And no word yet on if they've already reached out to Pamela Anderson, but I imagine Playboy would do that. I don't know what it takes to make this thing ever be. I don't think it can ever be culturally what it used to be way back in the day, but She obviously found that question fairly exciting. I wonder if you feel like you just have to ask it. I wonder if even if you don't truly think that that's a thing that really makes sense, you got to throw it out there. But that was a weird sentence. But I wonder. It might happen. All right, let's move on to more serious things. We can talk about John Bolton again and President Trump. Totally different than Pamela Anderson, but I wanted a little break for a second. John Bolton gave an interview to ABC. Martha Raddatz did a good job at times, I think, in this interview. She asked some questions early on about just how fit John Bolton seems to feel the president is, and he feels he is unfit to lead. Unfit, I think, in a lot of ways, as just a human. Here's part of that conversation.
You described the president as erratic, foolish, behaved irrationally, bizarrely. You can't leave him alone for a minute. He saw conspiracies behind rocks. He couldn't tell the difference between his personal interests and the country's interests.
I don't think he's fit for office. I don't think he has the competence to carry out the job. There really isn't any guiding principle that I was able to discern other than what's good for Donald Trump's reelection.
So this is a common narrative for those who criticize the president, that he is insecure, that he is on his own, he's isolated quite a bit, and that at times he's anything but intelligent. That is the conversation as it exists. So this is not necessarily a new take. It's not really a hot take. Although, again, as this conversation continues between Martha and John Bolton, I think that a different idea starts to emerge. I think what a lot of people will accuse John Bolton as being the other reason you write a book like this, you're upset, you're angry, you're offended in some of the decisions that the president made that didn't go the way you advised him to go. This is as far as our national security goes, as far as Iran goes, and also just a lot of criticism for his relationship with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. But here is more of the conversation between Martha and Bolton about the president in general and how he feels about his fitness. And then it mentions some of those security issues, which I think is really the heart of this, and something that people who know John Bolton well say it's the motivator in all this, is that he was upset in decision-making as far as our policy goes, and as far as just not bombing Iran specifically, but as far as our policy goes on a international front. And so that is really more so than anything else a motivator behind an attempt to destroy this man. Here's that second part of the conversation.
How do you think history will remember Donald Trump?
I hope it will remember him as a one-term president who didn't plunge the country irretrievably into a downward spiral we can't recall from. We can get over one term. 2 terms I'm more troubled about. Decisions are made in a very scattershot fashion, especially in the potentially mortal field of national security policy.
When you hear that sentence, when you hear that conversation about how obviously 1 term is survivable, 2 is not, according to John Bolton, and then he mentions the national security angle, that starts to feel like political posturing. That doesn't necessarily feel like true, I just need to protect the American people conversation. What it sounds like now to me is strategy. You put the book out during the election purposefully. You are now encouraging people to move on from the president and saying things like a second term would be disastrous. Well, apparently a first term wasn't bad enough for you to actually testify in front of an impeachment, testify during an impeachment trial. He doesn't go that road. It's not serious enough for that. But a second term apparently would be catastrophic during an election. And then you mentioned national security, which, by the way, is for sure, in my opinion, the thing that you're most upset about as far as the president and your interactions are concerned. He didn't listen to you. You gave him advice. He went the other way. And then you said, you know what, I'm taking this guy down. That's my opinion. And a lot of the book then, to me, winds up being less factual, just based on if someone's motivated against you and they write something about you, the odds of it being 100% true are probably terrible. If someone is upset with you, if it's just anybody in your life, next time you have a fight with someone, as soon as the fight is over, ask them to write some stuff about you and see how much of it is factual and how much of it is angry. It sounds like the entire time John Bolton was writing this book, he's angry. It sounds like he's still angry right now that some of the advice wasn't taken. And granted, does that mean that everything in this book is a lie? Probably not. I got to be honest. There's things in this book that scare me and things that might be real. But then you also have conversations about how often do presidents like Trump and the president of China, Xi, have conversations similar to the one he's accused of having in this book, where he asked China essentially for help in getting him reelected. He didn't do it that directly. He did it more indirectly. But how often do you think in political situations and with foreign leaders do conversations similar to that happen, maybe with more eloquence than sometimes the president desires to have? I don't even know if he's incapable of it, but certainly he doesn't seem to desire to be eloquent as often as, or beat around the bush as much as other people seem to be willing to do that. But do you really believe that any other president hasn't sat down with some sort of foreign leader and made some pitch to do maybe something? This would be buying more agricultural products to help lift up that part of the economy, a part of the economy that President Trump knows he has supporters within. How often do you think conversations similar to that are happening? I think they happen quite a bit. I don't know that, again, they happen in a form where someone can hear it and say, oh, that was bad. That's the illegal version of that. But I think a part of those conversations is how well you can provide a message to someone that you really can't say out loud while not saying the thing out loud you can't say. And maybe President Trump at times, because of his directness, his desire, as always, to be that kind of human, gets him in trouble a little bit more, or at least gets him judged a little bit more for being unwilling and or incapable of doing it the way that I think other people in the past have done it. But those are more of the comments from John Bolton as far as the president goes. There was one last thing, actually. He talked about the press briefings, or not the press briefings, the internal briefings that presidents get on a daily basis. And apparently Donald Trump does not get those every single day. And you've actually heard this before from other people, but just how uninterested he is in not only being a part of those briefings, but even just reading the documentation that's given to him. This is John Bolton talking about that.
What were his briefings like? Was he reading his briefings?
Well, my experience was he very rarely read much. The intelligence briefings took place perhaps once or twice a week.
Is that unusual?
It's very unusual. They should take place every day. The president should read extensively the material he's given. It's not clear to me that he read much of anything. There was just an unwillingness on the part of the president, I think, to do systematic learning so that he could make the most informed decisions.
I'm a very stable genius.
The president has referred to himself as a stable genius. Is that what you saw?
Really? How can anybody call himself a stable genius?
Yep, that's part of the conversation, too. Obviously, they end with the stable genius shot, which I think is now a headline all over the place. How can anybody call themselves a stable genius? Let's tackle the first part of that conversation real quick, and then I think I got to take a break. The second part, if you don't know Donald Trump, he puts his name in giant letters on everything he owns. He is the kind of guy that would call himself a stable genius. Whether or not it's true or not is irrelevant. That is one of several people that would. I know a lot of people that are like that, actually, that tout themselves in different rooms. You start to get used to it, actually, depending on who you are and what you do. If you have to always promote your brand, if you're a real estate developer coming up in a place like New York, even with a great start from a successful dad, you still become a brand promoter. That's a lot of us in this industry, the industry of media, do it all the time in order to still be working, get jobs, whatever. So that's less surprising to me than anything else. But the first part, the part about the president doesn't read much of anything, according to a John Bolton. First, that's scary. If that's potentially accurate, I think it's worrisome. I would say this, though, and I'm not trying to get full-on bias bandwagon and tell you just how great this guy is. I have my problems. But I will say this. He's a man that likes to decide based on gut. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Probably more people would say bad than good, but it's a true thing. He likes to have a gut reaction to what you're telling him, and then he goes based on his feel. Whether or not that's good, we have not gotten into the catastrophic problems, at least as far as foreign policy goes, that so many predicted. We're not at war right now the way that people told you during the first election. We definitely were going to be at war. No one has been attacked with a nuclear bomb the way that so many told you that he was just unfit to lead because he couldn't be trusted with access to that kind of power. None of that's happened. So if you say that sentence, that the president is unwilling to read things, unwilling to participate in his briefings that are of vital importance to our national security, and then I don't know that we're all that insecure as a nation as far as a military front right now. Does it ring true? Does it ring hollow to you? That's my question. You answer it as you want, but I wonder if maybe a lot more of this is just the public perception being reaffirmed yet again than any of the reality that takes place as we see every single day. All right, I got to take a break. A lot more coming up. Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson. I will tell you about that Kurt Cobain guitar that sold for a lot of money recently, and actually some of the drama behind it. And then I'll tell you why you shouldn't work out all that strenuously. That's true. I have a study about how you need to take a break while working out for your own health, and studies like that I'll always support. More of the Chad Benson Show coming up.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. Happy Monday. Thrilled to be with you. I've mentioned this story a couple times, so might as well finally tell you the actual details of it. Kurt Cobain's MTV Unplugged guitar sold for a record $6 million recently. The opening bid was $1 million before eventually getting to the end price of $6 million. If you remember, this guitar was in the news in the past because Kurt's daughter, Frances Bean Cobain, used to own the guitar, but then she lost it when an ex, his name is Isaiah Sylvia, got it in divorce. Frances and Courtney Love tried in vain to get it back for quite a while, but it never wound up working out. The guitar has since been sold. I'm told by my producer, Phil, it's not really that great of a guitar, even if it was owned at one time by Kurt Cobain. It is a 1959 Martin D18E. I don't know a lot of what that means. I wish I could play guitars. Don't totally understand them, but I guess it's more the nostalgia of owning it. I don't think anybody who buys this thing would ever play it. I wonder if you would, though. I guess it depends on the amount of money. The guy that I told you about last week who drives a Porsche while towing a hot tub behind him and damaging both items quite a bit, he might have the money to throw $6 million at the guitar and then play it as opposed to not. But I think a majority of people might just put this in a case somewhere and point at it from time to time. It is a new world record, $6 million and actually $10,000, the sale price of Kurt Cobain's guitar. I saw this story. It made me laugh a lot. You may have noticed some work you need to do around the house while we were all stuck in quarantine. A lot of people noticed. About 78% of people questioned, said, there's some stuff I should fix. The average price to fix these things is about $680. These are the top 1, 2, maybe 3 repairs in your home. My favorite part of the study, though, 1 in 10 people that admitted they noticed something that needed fixing tried to go ahead and fix it on their own. They weren't going to hire a pro to come in when everything shut down, so they fixed it on their own. And a majority of those individuals made things a lot worse. They broke things, they damaged things, they fixed nothing. And in reality, when the time comes, they're definitely going to need a professional because now they've got 5 or 6 repairs that need a fixing. You know people like this. I know people like this. They tell you to your face time and again that they can, take care of that problem you have, or they're going to do some work in the backyard. And then when they inevitably do it, things go awry pretty correctly. The most common reason that people said they screwed things up outside of lack of knowledge and or I guess maybe picking the wrong YouTube video, incorrect assembly. That's what they said. They're like, I bought all the pieces. I was excited, and then I didn't know how to put any of this together. If you've ever built anything from IKEA, you know that we're not all of the same level of ability here, and that more often than not in the IKEA world, you throw a bunch of pieces into the drawer that you don't know where they were supposed to go, and you just hope that the dresser you made stays standing. I would not make that same move if it's something like, I don't know, the electrical within my home, but I guess people went that road. The average of 3 things going wrong was part of the problem as well. Mentioned saying not only did they lose track of maybe where they started at, but now they had done so much damage they had no idea how to fix. That's just hilarious. I wonder how many home improvement, how many repair guys have been called into houses like this and looked around and been like, it's quarantine, huh? You did a bunch of this work yourself, didn't you? And he's like, yeah, that's what I. I wonder too if they wind up trying to help out. If you're the guy that broke stuff while the pro is actually there, do you stand there and hand him the tools like a child? Are you like, what screwdriver you need again? Okay, here you go. I take one of those. I think that probably that was my first mistake, is not knowing I needed that item to fix this thing. I love it. I love this story, though. And I'm lucky because I might have been one of these people, too. All right, it's Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. A lot more coming up.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Craig Collins with you on the Chad Benson Show. Chad is back tomorrow. I am thrilled to be here, and happy Monday, as I keep saying, even though Monday is not always happy for everybody, but happy Monday. I'm having a great time. I wanted to talk more about John Bolton and Martha Raddatz, but then I also didn't. So I have a little bit more audio. Maybe I'll save it. Maybe I'll play it in a bit. I have an odd war of my own that I do on the air every so often. It's something that I'm passionate about. I don't know why I'm so passionate about it. There's nothing really wrong with the animal that I'm against, but I'm against it, and it's cats. I think dogs are better. I just think they're way better, and every so often, when given an opportunity, and certainly when given a platform like this, I want to highlight facts that help support my decision-making there as to which is better, cats or dogs. I know this is weird to go right to this, but I'm that passionate about it. This is what I care enough about. If there were a rally held that were anti-cat, I might show up, even as COVID-19 is going on. If they had an anti-cat one and maybe a dog was the main speaker, which would be awesome in a lot of ways, I might be right in the front row. But anyway, a new study found that cat lovers, even females who love cats, find men far less attractive if they're holding a cat. It is that simplistic. The average man, sans cat, more attractive. With cat, less attractive. Dog, not really researched well, although actually I think I've done quite a few stories that you're more likely to get dates and matches on dating apps if you have a dog in your photo. This research comes from Colorado State University. They took photos of various men, one by themselves and one while holding a cat. There were over 700 different people that were asked questions about the men in the photos. I don't know why this happened. What's weird about this study, just to take a second and to really sink it in, really enjoy it, is they didn't do anything with any other animal. This was 100% either trying to support or go after cats, which is why I like the researchers at Colorado State University, no matter what side of the aisle they're on. And I say from time to time, and certainly through COVID-19, I think a lot of scientists got bored. A lot of people that do this job were like, what can we do that's really entertaining and ridiculous? Because right now we don't know what else to study. So they did this. It applied to both short-term and long-term relationship potential as far as ratings go. So they were debating a broad range of different things. Men who were holding cats were determined to be several negative things. One of the most popular things said about them, or one of the most popular areas in which they failed, was being likely to be more neurotic, a crazier boyfriend potentially if he's just holding the cat. Although that is, let's be honest. I mean, I don't know if it's the fact that the animal doesn't like to be held as much as dogs, but if you're walking around just like holding the cat, or if you put a bunch of photos of yourself with cat in hand, I think that it does look a little bit more like it's I get it. But again, I have a one-man war on all things cats, and I'm not judging you if you have them. I know that a lot of people get mad. This is probably the hottest take I have on shows that I'm on ever, which is probably sad. I need to take some other more important, serious hot takes, but I can't help it. In other words, cats hurt your chances of finding love is the end part of that study, and I find that full-on hilarious. I mentioned this earlier, didn't pay it off yet. Strenuous exercise may actually shorten your lifespan, not make you more healthy, and this is way different than some exercise, serious exercise. This is full-on pushing yourself to your extreme for an extended period of time. The way in which this study happened, actually, is they studied, and this is a weird thing, I didn't know this was a thing, male art performers whose art is constant, quick, and physically strenuous movement. That's what they call them. It's actually a name for it that I'm not going to get right, so I'm not even going to say it. But Tokyo Institute of Technology researched this group of actors, is what they called them for the study. About 800 people were part of the study, and they found that there were detrimental effects to their health, including potential cardiac issues, potential heart issues, if they did this type of activity for too much time on a almost daily basis. The form of art consists of moving with very exaggerated, very extreme, and consistent stress to, I guess, all of the body. It's a kind of art that I don't think I'd ever be a part of. Honestly, I just didn't know that there were actors that did this. I really don't get if it's just performance art or if it's a thing. I mean, I understand, a karate performance or something of some kind. I sound very unhealthy right now. But to do this, to just be like, yeah, what are you? I'm an actor. What kind of acting do you do? Well, mostly it's performance art in the sports and physical arena. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I'm sure I'm probably wrong about this too. And people are telling me all about it on social media. You can find us on social media Chad Benson's on Facebook, Twitter, all over the place. And then I'm the Craig Collins Show on Facebook.com if you want to check me out, not the social media following of some of the other guys out there. So give me a like if you like me. And if not, please don't be that mean. All right, let's move on to one other thing that I found that I thought was amusing, because this is the segment for that, apparently. The New Jersey pizza squirrel has united the internet. That is a headline that took place, I think, actually last week. It's a 40-second clip on Twitter. I think it appeared last Thursday, of a Hoboken squirrel that has a half a slice of pizza in its mouth as it's climbing up a tree. And honestly, it looks awesome. But here's the thing. Probably the reason that this tweet is so ridiculously popular and has been shared a bunch of times, liked a bunch of times, and commented on is one person's real hot take at the tail end of this chain. Someone said that New Jersey has the best pizza in the world, way better than their friends in New York City, and that's going to start an argument. And even though I like that the headline says New Jersey pizza squirrel unites Twitter, nature is healing, is what a lot of people said. Once you go hot take, once you say whose pizza is better, and there's crazy people in this debate. There's intelligent people who I think, man, this is a hot take too, come from the East Coast. These are people in New York, New Jersey that say that kind of pizza is great. There's people that come from other parts of the country that have no idea what pizza is. These people would live in places like Chicago and or California and make really unfortunate decisions. And I like a lot of the things that exist in those places, and I'm aware that I'm being heard in a lot of those places. But let's be honest. Come on. If you know what pizza is going to unite the internet, it's not going to be a Chicago deep dish and or a piece of whatever the heck is some of those more experimental designs that happen every so often on the west part of our country. I love you guys. I apologize already and immediately. Again, I'm in a hot take territory, and I'm not talking about politics at all. I should go back to Bolton, probably. I should go back to something else that's easier for me to navigate, apparently, than this conversation. I saw another thing here. You know what? I'm just going to keep going. Let's try this out. You know, and actually, I like this story a lot for a couple reasons. The first one is I am married to someone that comes from a much warmer climate than the United States. She's used to desert-like things. She's used to temperatures that I often get upset about. And so early on in our relationship, when we were living together, I noticed that air conditioning is something that she was not a fan of all the time. And it makes some months of the year harder than other months. Let's just say that honestly. I saw that one of the most common fights that a relationship can have, and many adults have ended, both friendships and or romantic relationships. By the way, I've been married like 7-8 years. I think we're going to make it through it, is thermostat etiquette. People fight over how warm or how cold to keep it in certain climates. And the more likely of the two to fight about is the AC. 2,000 Americans were surveyed. The average temperature of a home, they like to keep it at 69 degrees in the old summer months. But people fight. They fight about saving money. They fight about just the temperature itself. This is something where a lot of people admit they feel defeated when the spouse, significant other, just eventually does not side with them and keeps going their own way. I got used to it. I lived through it. Maybe that's real love. Maybe that's true love for anyone out there that's curious. Like, is this person committed to me? Do they love me? Do they care? Try messing with the temperature of your home just a bit. Even if you don't want it warmer or colder, just go that road. And if you make it through that fight, then apparently you'll make it probably through anything. I think it's really funny. Common AC myths include that scheduling regular preventative maintenance is the best way to ensure peak performance. That's not always true. Apparently, that's more of a myth. Also, just in general, some people debate how much energy it uses. Like, should you leave AC on all the time? Should you have it go off and on throughout the day when you're not home? Is that smarter? Is that better? 35% of people seem to think that turning it all the way down when you leave is better for you. It's better for your spending. And apparently that's pretty true. Apparently that if it's a long duration of time you're going to be out of the house, like a work day, as opposed to a couple hours, you actually do spend less money having it go way down and then come all the way back up when you come home. But it matters how long the duration is that you're out of the house, of course, because you don't want to dip it up and down throughout. But there you go. I've solved that problem, and I've told you how to find love in 2020. You just got to mess with the heat of your home, the temperature of your house, and if somebody sticks in there, then they're in for the long haul. This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in, probably causing a lot of fights in relationships all over the place. I apologize for that. After a quick break here, I want to talk about Johnson & Johnson and a product that apparently is controversial. It's not even terribly popular here. It's more popular in Asia and the Middle East, but it's going to be discontinued even though it sells well by Johnson & Johnson. And this is a reaction to a lot of the protesting, a lot of the upset and civil unrest that exists in our society. Obviously, last week, the story of conversation was how many different brands would be willing to reimagine their logos and or change the full-on name of their products in order to appease those that feel they were more than upsetting, that they were full-on racist. Now we have a product that sells well in parts of the world, but apparently needs to go away. I will tell you what that product is and why it kind of doesn't at all make sense to me. All right, I'm going to be honest. It does not make sense to me. But first, a quick break. A lot more. Craig Collins filling in on Chad Benson Show.
Experiencing separation anxiety? That's dumb. Check out Chad 24/7 at his website, ChadBensonShow.com, and on iTunes, free. The Chad Benson Show. Never feel lonely again.
Craig Collins with you on the Chad Benson Show for just one more day. Chad is back tomorrow. Much deserved vacation for him. I have an article from Johnson & Johnson, an article talking about Johnson & Johnson and their discontinuing of a product that's gotten a whole bunch of criticism recently via the social media and a bunch of other places, I guess. The New York Times covered the story as well. Johnson & Johnson will discontinue something being called in the title of this article as skin whitening cream. Actually, later on, it's called a dark circles remover of some kind. I've never put products like this on my face, so I guess I really don't understand. I don't care about the circles that exist under my eyes. Not going to fight it. But Neutrogena has some fine fairness and clear fairness products that I guess are designed to reduce some of that stuff. I know because my wife loves all kinds of things that remove stuff like that. But apparently the problem here is that the goal of the object and the way in which it's used in Asia and the Middle East is to whiten the entirety of a person's skin. And that is, of course, thought to be racist now and thought to be completely insensitive. I don't think that people need to change the color of their skin, and I don't think Johnson & Johnson feels that way either. It is a dark spot reducer is what it's being called, which I think exists for all kinds of humans. But it's odd to see that a product that's selling well, that people want, is going to be discontinued because people feel now that apparently even those who want to use it are wrong and can't be allowed the opportunity to use it. A 12,000-person petition was signed calling for the ending of this product. That's actually not as high as some of these other ones that I assumed would be in there. But because of that, Johnson & Johnson has apologized to the internet world for even having it exist and is going to stop selling it completely. I don't know when the tipping point is to where we feel like some things that are being demanded to change because they're insensitive or worse is gone too far. I don't know if it's a product like this or if it's something even less potentially upsetting than this. But this to me is just a story I want to tell you about. I guess they came to their decision in Johnson & Johnson on Friday of last week. But yeah, they're going to be discontinuing a well-selling product in parts of the world because it has now been thought to be, unfortunately, racist. I have another story that I can't believe. Actually, to count the amount of seconds that this goes on for, and I'm not going to play it for you because it's just a visual. But there is a viral story right now of a delivery driver. I think he's delivering a pizza to a home. And as he walks up to the door, rings the doorbell, and they have the little camera, as so many of us do now, on the front of our door, the delivery guy immediately starts to scratch. He scratches an itch that a lot of us men know exists from time to time. He's holding the bag of food in one hand, and he goes south with the other hand, and he stays there for 12 seconds. I counted it. It's research I do for this very show. I sat here timing out the amount of time that situation was continuing to occur, 12 seconds until the door opens. So I don't even think he was really truly hiding what he was doing. He looks like a kid, by the way, certainly a teenager and or a kid in his young 20s. Obviously, this is gross. Obviously, no person would like to have their food delivered by a guy that recently or actually actively is in the process of doing that. And yet, okay, time to get a little bit honest. Time to get in the trust tree here for a second. It's probably happened to a lot of us. It probably has. A driver in a car, in a vehicle somewhere, maybe not standing on your porch waiting for you to open the front door, may have done something like this from time to time. It's not hygienic. It's not allowed. It should not be okay. And yet it's probably happened. And the reason I even bring this story up more than any other one is it was one of the first big points of contest or conflict between my wife and I, is the fact that a man would ever do that. And I would like to brag and say that I think I'm less active than most in partaking in that situation, but that a man would ever go that road is so hard to fathom for the ladies, apparently, or at least the lady in my life, that it makes for an interesting conversation in and of itself. Like, why? Why do you need to go? What would be... maybe we should start selling like gloves. Maybe there should be a glove product or something. Maybe I get one. Maybe I brand it after me because no way Chad Benson wants to start having those be a product in the world. But it's called the Scratcher. It's some kind of very hygienic way for you to go down when you need to, come back out and feel like you can still live your life and not be treated like a pariah to the rest of society. Although this is just full on uncomfortable again. If you see it, I'll put it up on our social media pages so you can see exactly what's happening there. But it's way too long. I got to be honest. If you were a delivery driver and you just couldn't handle it, say it got too bad, you, one, never, ever, ever should do it on a porch. And two, it should be the fastest that you've ever done that in your whole life. And you should immediately have hand sanitizer, which we all do have right now. You should have it at your disposal to do that. And this is only if you have to. I would very much encourage those handling food to wait, to hold out. And I know it can be itchy, believe me. And this is a conversation I didn't expect to have in this much detail. I know it's a challenge. I know the struggle is real. And yet still, I think that product's a good idea, though, man. Some kind of hygienic way to fix that issue. Honestly, the technology exists. Let's get Bezos on it. Let's ask Bezos to figure out an Alexa product that can handle that problem. Man, would that sell well. If you could say out loud, hey, Alexa, I got an itch, I need a scratching, and it could handle it for you. I mean, that might be the best-selling product they'd ever created. Bezos, I have an idea, and I just willingly shared it on the radio in the most juvenile of segments I could possibly handle. But it's not totally my fault. It's this driver's fault for the viral video he put out there in the world. I mean, that's a level of bold. Seriously, like, he's probably fired. I think he has to be fired for that, but it doesn't seem like he really cares. I mean, growing up, he must have been a guy that went this road way too often and got yelled at in public by, I don't know, his mom, everyone in his family all the time for being unwilling to understand that some things shouldn't happen in public spaces, and certainly not spaces like that. All right, this has been fun. I like silly, but I think I got to get serious coming up here in a bit. I want to talk about Seattle, which is a place I'm lacking to understand more and more all the time, and certainly a very specific area within that city is getting confusing to me. There's a really great article in the New York Post about how intense that place can be, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. But I will talk about that. I will shift gears for those that thought the last segment way too juvenile, way too silly, way too, whatever word you want to say. I will hit the serious stuff. I still have more John Bolton audio I can get to, more of Donald Trump and his rally, which is certainly a conversation that a lot of people will be having or had since, I guess it occurred over the weekend, because, there's a lot of takes, a lot of feelings. And look, it was very lowly attended. It was attended by about a little bit more than a third of the capacity of the place in which he gave the speech. That shouldn't have been surprising. I guess it was because of the amount of tickets that were potentially being sold, and that there might be reasons for that. But in reality, I mean, you tried during a time like this and it didn't necessarily succeed. I have all of that and more, and no more of the scratching stories after this. Craig Collins filling in on Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. I'm filling in today. Chad is back tomorrow. All right, let's do it. Let's talk about Seattle and, to an extent, Portland as well, and some of the things that are taking place in these places, some of them very confusing. The CHAZ, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, has been established for a little bit of time now. There's a great article in the New York Post I'll touch on in a second, talking about an individual's 5-day stay in that area of Seattle and how terrifying it was to be there. But let's talk about the actual news, what happened over the weekend on Saturday and into Sunday morning. A person was shot. A man was killed in that area. It left a 19-year-old man dead and another critically injured. There was a shooting that took place in the CHAZ. That, in and of itself, I guess not, unfortunately, much of a news story, except for the fact that as police responded to the situation, something in which some officials have said 911 calls have tripled in the area since it was established, since it kept law enforcement individuals out of it and was really designed to just be policing on our own kind of situations. But since the phone calls have tripled and since this situation occurred, police officers were met with conflict when trying to respond to the victim to gain evidence to try to find out who did it, and obviously to maybe save lives if possible. They were yelled at by the people that occupy that zone. At that time in the morning, by the way, 2:30 a.m. on Saturday in an area of downtown known as the CHAZ, these conflicts took place, and it took the police quite a bit of time to get anyone to the scene who could actually investigate it. Private vehicles took 2 males with gunshot wounds to a medical center where the 19-year-old died, and the other one is still in intensive critical care. As last I saw, the King County Medical Examiner's Office had yet to release the identity of the man who had died. According to this article, the suspect or suspects have fled the scene and are not currently apprehended. They are active and ongoing. That is surreal to think about. Unfortunately, the loss of life here, but also just the way in which this would be handled by that area. Someone was shot, someone was killed, and the police officers trying to respond to help were denied access and met with conflict. Then we get to the New York Post article, My Terrifying 5-Day Stay Inside Seattle's Cop-Free CHAZ. On June 8th, Seattle police frantically loaded with what they could from the East Precinct onto trucks and cars and abandoned it, and then the CHAZ was created. What's surreal about this article, as I dive into it, is the way in which kind of, I guess, for lack of a better word, the policing, the maintaining of the community exists now that there are no actual police there to do it. The group is run by security for the group is run by a woman by the name of Creature. Her name is Creature. She's defined in the article as a short female. She and the rest of her team communicate via walkie-talkie devices and earpieces, some of them openly carrying rifles, handguns, batons, and knives. Their operating base is an open-air eating section of a restaurant, apparently. That's where they operate their security from. Signs posted all over their base declare no photos, no videos. Another sign lists Venmo names for donations. So you can just go ahead and shoot some digital currency their way if you're happy with their work that they're doing. Surreal, as I'm telling you this is a place that exists right now in the United States. Though CHAZ claims to have no rules, quickly many were provided to the guy, to the writer as he stayed there. For example, those in Garden area, which is mostly white people, have been told not to, quote, recolonize the space. Mainstream media reports have focused on the block party atmosphere of the occupation, repeating a talking point from the Seattle mayor. She, along with fellow Democrat governors, have gone to great lengths to emphasize the peaceful nature of the occupation. For media crews that arrive during the day, that is certainly what they will see. People have barbecues in the street. Many people, their children play and draw in the street. People walk dogs. But at night, the culture in the CHAZ shifts dramatically, according to this writer. Lacking agreed-upon leadership, those who have naturally risen to the top have done so with force and intimidation. These are quotes from this article. For example, a rapper whose real name is Solomon Simone patrols CHAZ on some nights with an armed entourage. Simone, originally from Georgia, has an arrest record for child cruelty and other charges. He usually conducts his patrols carrying a long semi-automatic rifle and a sidearm. Last weekend, a live stream recorded Simone handing another man a rifle from a trunk of his car. Is this what you want in your neighborhood? I think the answer probably is no, that you don't want people with child cruelty on their arrest records walking around and policing your neighborhood in certain ways, maybe some seeming to incite more fear than actual protection. Those unfortunate enough to have homes or businesses within this area, an estimated 30,000 residents, have no say over their new, quote, overlords. According to this article, residents have discreetly voiced their concern to local media. Gunshots and screams of terror at night have been reported. A resident of an apartment building came out twice to ask protesters to leave where the alley, the entrance to their location, and they were just ignored. There are also reports of all kinds of heinous crimes. These are the worst of crimes, not only obviously the shooting of individuals, but rape has gone up on a few different levels as far as the reporting of it. And again, 911 calls have tripled in the area of the CHAZ, even though some people are celebrating the block party elements that exist in this location. It's surreal to think that you could cover a place like this during morning hours and say it's something and not maybe go back at night or maybe willingly exclude the fact that at night it seems to be a far different experience, at least to one person who stayed in that area. I've never been there. I can't tell you for sure who's right or wrong as far as people and what they're saying here. Of course, I can tell you that a shooting did happen and a 19-year-old died, and I can tell you that video footage demonstrates that the people in the area were preventing police from trying to respond to it to investigate a situation like that. And so all I can do is tell you the facts. All I can do is tell you that information. I'm certain that a lot of people listening to this, even those who support a lot of the protesting going on, even those who support changes in what a lot are calling systematic oppression, do not want to see situations like this because inevitably force is still necessary, right? What this says to me more than anything else is that the idyllic version of a world where we don't need police, which is not a world I can envision us ever being in, the idyllic version is that everybody's nice, that nobody ever has any kind of conflict, and that any little squabbles that pop up can be handled by neighborhoods and communities. That's obviously not a realistic version and not even one a lot of people will say is possible, but that I think is what you envision first when you look at just maybe your own neighborhood and say, okay, we don't need enforcement or something here because at least in our neighborhood, I think that I know a lot of the people, they'll be okay. Then there's the other version, the version where, yes, bad things happen, the version that is real life, and then who should be the people that are armed and the people that are protecting society from the bad things that occur in that society. And if you're a defund the police supporter and your answer is those who are willing to do it without pay or just it makes no sense. It makes no logical sense to me. And we're seeing a location in Seattle that is without any sort of approval attempting to just kind of do this on their own. The streets are deciding to control the streets. And you've seen death. You've seen triple the 911 phone calls. You've seen an inability to help. You've seen a lot of bad things in that area. This is obviously the kind of thing that maybe should be talked about quite a bit more in a lot of other places. If you're not hearing this story enough, I'm glad to provide that to you. All right, let's move on to something lighter. Let's move on to criminals that are dumb, which always entertains me. Not criminals that are doing horrible things, but criminals that are just stupid because, I got a kick out of this. A 53-year-old burglar in England got his foot stuck in a window while trying to flee from a crime. He ended up having to call the fire department to rescue him. That is a true story. The guy's name is Fred Bolton. He broke into an empty apartment building last week. He saw that there was an open window. He didn't find anything to steal, by the way. He just was a potential burglar who was out of items because, again, it's a building that's getting remodeled and nothing was in it. So on his way out, he somehow got his foot stuck in a window he couldn't reopen. He ended up dangling outside the building upside down and had to call the fire department to come rescue him. So that is, if you're a fire department guy and you respond to this, that's a life memory. You will forever remember the day that Fred tried to rob an empty building and got stuck hanging upside down out of a window. And he had to call you and be like, hey, man, what are you doing here? Yeah, I was trying to rob this place. There's nothing in there. Yeah, I know. And then had this happen. I don't know. I got stuck. This is hilarious to me. The judge wound up sentencing the guy to 18 months of probation, and he has to go to rehab because he may have some other issues. And honestly, just the ridicule he'll get from the social media world is probably a pretty substantial punishment, considering the fact that he didn't actually steal anything because there was nothing there to be stolen. He just was attempting to do it. This is, to me, a lot more fun. This is the kind of thing that I find entertaining. Also, this is another story that I found interesting, not because of the crime committed. That's not really funny. This was a protester, a rioter, which honestly, you should define those things as separate. A lot of peaceful protesting exists in this community, in this world, and then there was a lot of rioting, a lot of looting. One person by the name of Lori Elizabeth Blumenthal, she's 33, was arrested for arson. She threw Molotov cocktails at a few different cars, lighting them on fire, cop cars. The reason why she was caught, though, is where this is entertaining to me. It was a couple key factors. She had a very unique T-shirt on when she committed this crime. By the way, it for sure is a crime. And that T-shirt could be found on a website called Etsy, where people make unique and interesting things, and then they sell them on their own. And her review of her T-shirt on Etsy, because apparently this criminal went there to talk about how great the T-shirt was, which is just, to me, hilarious in and of itself. And then also, of course, social media video, Snapchat video and others was helpful in determining who the individual was. I don't get it. And I'll keep saying that, too, on the show. If you are a person, I'm not trying to teach people how to commit crime better. I'm thrilled they commit it poorly. But if you were a person doing something bad, I don't know why you need to social media it. I don't know why in that world, and I think this is just a young person problem, but you're like, my crime doesn't really count unless I put it up on the socials. Then I get the whatever for it. But yes, this woman in trouble. She gave a 5-star review to her super unique T-shirt, calling it fast shipping. Thanks so much for this. Can't wait to wear it. And apparently you did wear it, Elizabeth. So good luck to you. Good work there. That is something else. I can't believe it. All right, this is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. Going to try to get silly again because I like silly. I'm going to talk about a woman who now woke up after a couple months of being capable of speaking with a bunch of different accents. Science doesn't really understand why, but man, would it be cool if I was one of those people. Quick break, a lot more after this.
I, you, he, she, it. Lucy is a girl.
Point of personal privilege, please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Shut up, fool. Ain't nobody got time for this.
This is the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. I am not Chad Benson. My name is Craig Collins. I'm filling in with you for the day. Chad is back tomorrow. Well-deserved vacation for Chad. Moving on, I saw a story that I mentioned a little while ago that I want to talk about in the news. That's the thing you do here on the... I don't know why I explained that in those terms. That was the most obvious version of, yes, I'm about to talk about something I read online. A woman went mute for 2 months with no explanation from any sort of healthcare professional, any sort of doctor. She's 31. Her name is Emily Egan. Couldn't speak for 2 full months. And that's got to be terrifying. No reason why. Then all of a sudden she woke up with 4 different accents coming out of her mouth at the same time. She suddenly changed between sounding French, sounding Italian, sounding Russian at times, and then even having just broken English from all different, I guess, walks of life. I write differently now. My whole vocabulary has changed. My English has gotten much worse than it used to be after living in the UK my entire life. Emily told one of her local news coverage teams that I guess went out and interviewed her. My dad has said that I don't sound like me anymore and that I'd never imagined what me sounding like this would be. I've even experienced being made fun of by a lot of strangers who think I'm foreign. I had a man shout at me in a supermarket saying foreigners like me are the reason why we have coronavirus, even though she's born and raised in the area in which she was at. After months of testing, she was finally diagnosed with foreign accent syndrome, a rare speech disorder caused by damage to the brain. At this stage, doctors still have absolutely no idea what causes it. They just can find it. The 31-year-old was experiencing headaches for 2 weeks before suddenly having no ability to speak, and then now obviously having a really strange situation go on. This is weird. This story is just weird. Emily and her partner, Bradledge, by the name of, I guess he's 27, had booked a holiday before she got sick, and now unfortunately they're trying to deal with getting her better. 5 days into the holiday, I guess they had issues. In the days that passed, her voice became stronger, and she is completely baffled when she noticed it was coming out with all different kinds of weird accents. She is attending a private vocal therapy class once a week. There is no guarantee that she'll get better, but there is hope that I guess that would improve things. This would be a surreal experience to go through. Every part of this would be crazy. Having just 2 months where you couldn't speak at all and no one could figure out why would be terrifying, among other things. But then it coming out all different kinds of weird, crazy sounds that aren't your voice. I mean, we all say, I've worked in radio a long time. When you hear your voice recorded, that doesn't sound like me. But just think if you couldn't even control the accent that was coming out of your mouth, that would be, and then it would shift during spoken word. And I guess this is a thing that happens. I guess other people have had that syndrome before, enough to have it by name. But man, I just wanted to share that news story because it's surreal. It's surreal to think about what that would be like. And you'd probably even be called for like doing it on purpose. And yet, no, this is completely accidental. This is something they have no control over whatsoever. All right, let's move on to if you wear cologne or not. 1 in 20 people wear perfume or cologne, but a lot more say they'd like to wear it. About half of Americans think people who wear perfume and or cologne wear too much of it. 1 in 20 say they should dial it up even more. Here's the benefit for working from home, though. You don't have to do that kind of stuff. A recent online poll of 25,000 Americans said that people should be doing this more often than we are. 50% said people wear it, in general. They can tell it on a lot of people. 27 said that it's just the right amount, I guess. That's interesting, man. I don't know if you should do it more or not. And if you have a signature scent, I guess 32% of Americans believe that, yes, when they do wear one of these products, they have a one go-to. I've noticed that whenever I do throw it on, my wife is like usually way more excited and happy by me. I'm saying that the best way I can than when I don't throw it on, even if I've done nothing else to be fancy for a day, but you just throw on a little bit of cologne. So maybe it's something we should do a lot more of. Apparently, according to this study, it's something that we also need to take a little bit of make sure it's the right amount. Don't go crazy with it. Otherwise, it's probably not going to cause the reactions you want. Although I know if you don't do it a lot, then maybe that's the reason that you soak yourself in certain smells, because you're like, this is only for special occasions. I want to make sure people can detect it. And really, maybe the way we fix it is by getting you to be able to smell it more on yourself. I don't know what it is that causes that, but the inability to smell it when you spray it on yourself is causing all these problems. That's true. All right, after the break, I will talk about some serious things still. I will talk about the president again. I will talk about John Bolton, who's still in the news, of course. I will play some audio from the Trump rally that existed, even though people didn't want it to exist. And I also have a story about a face bra and a story about a doorbell camera that caught a really hilarious interaction with an Amazon driver. Those are more uplifting and fun things to me. And yes, I will definitely explain what a face bra is, because I don't expect you to know. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. I'm filling in for the day. Chad is back tomorrow. John Bolton gave an interview. Last night. He gave it with ABC. Martha Raddatz did a pretty good job, in my opinion, at times, a really great job at questioning John Bolton. But let's hear a little bit more from that conversation. Let's hear what he said in general to the question Martha asked about the fact that Trump is currently the president.
What would you say to the American people as you sit here? Donald Trump, one, he is the president of the United States. He has a very strong base of support.
I tried to write a book that took the 17 months I spent as National Security Advisor and reveal a picture of the president that people can draw their own conclusions from. My conclusion is clear. I don't think he should be president.
I don't know if they can draw their own conclusions. If they believe everything you wrote in the book, it's pretty strong that you think that the facts demonstrate that he's not really fit to be our leader. But here we go. As far as Martha then gets really great within the interview at asking why it's a book, why you wrote a book, why you didn't testify, why didn't you do anything that makes sense as far as trying to get someone through not through a process, through the impeachment process when it existed. Why don't you want to help people remove a person from power that you feel is blatantly committing things that are fully against what he should be doing in that office? Why instead do you write something that you make money off of? Here's his response.
You could have told these stories when you were in the White House or when the impeachment trial was going on, and you chose instead to do it in a book.
Because I didn't think the Democrats had the wit or the political understanding or the reach to change what for them was an exercise in arousing their own base so that they could say, we impeached Donald Trump. The Democrats can pursue whatever policy they want. They don't dictate to me how best to bring this to the attention of the American people.
But you can certainly understand why your critics say, why didn't he come forward before? Why is he making a profit on this now?
You know, it has nothing to do with making a profit. It has everything to do with making sure that the constitutional responsibilities that are accorded the different branches of government are carried out the right way.
I got to be honest. If it's not about making money, then donate all the money. I said it before, and this is when you call a guy on the words he's saying. If it wasn't about making money, you don't write a book at all. You put it out the other ways, as Martha's pointing out, maybe the legal ways that made sense at the time, instead of refusing to testify and then putting out a book in which you get paid. You make money off of it. You're going to do a bunch more media appearances, I'm sure, about this in the future. Why do it that way? So donate everything. Donate every single penny. And look, within this interview, he said that he's not going to vote for either of the main candidates for president. He's going to write in a conservative he believes in. So then throw all your money at their campaign. If you feel like, our country can't possibly handle another term of President Trump we need for our own security to have somebody else do it, and you believe you know who that person is, you're going to write them in because you know who they are, just throw money at them. Just try to get that campaign off the ground, Mr. Bolton, so that you obviously can go that road instead of profiting a whole bunch off a book that may or may not totally be accurate. It's a surreal thing. All right, let's talk about some other serious stuff for just a minute. I want to hit on coronavirus, COVID-19, just because, look, I know the president had a rally. I know that there was criticism for the rally, but at the same time, I know that coronavirus is not gone. It hasn't disappeared from our society. In fact, the world just saw the largest one-day spike in coronavirus cases ever, according to the Associated Press via ABC News. Sunday, the World Health Organization, which the president currently has problems with, and certainly I think a lot of those problems can make sense, said that there were 183,000 new COVID-19 cases across the globe in a 24-hour period. That's the largest single-day increase since the pandemic started. Of those cases, 54,771 originated in Brazil. However, the United States came in second with a staggering 36,617 new cases in 24 hours. Now, there's another thing that the president is getting criticized for saying during his rally, and that is to reduce the amount of testing, to slow down testing. And a lot of people are saying that that's reckless. He should not joke. He should not make any light of the idea that we reduce testing and we need it. We need as much of it as possible. And look, I will try to make the argument as logically as I can that testing may incite more fear as opposed to just giving us a scope as to how many people are ill and how many people we need to make sure to quarantine, whatever. Is testing important? Of course it is. You need to know where the virus is. You need to know how many people have it so you can react appropriately in communities and protect those who are not sick yet, or find a way, I guess, to get to the point where we have a vaccine and or people, maybe enough people get it that they wind up being immune to it. Although asymptomatic cases are a huge part of all this. But if you test more and you find more of those asymptomatic cases, the individuals that are not showing symptoms, the individuals that may not be contagious, although I think actually the spread of the virus does come from both groups. But there's back and forth as to how serious how many people get infected from an asymptomatic person compared to one showing symptoms. But just being honest, the more we ramp up testing, the more we hear numbers like that one I just shared. The world saw the largest one-day increase in cases. And the more your levels of stress might go up, the more fear you might have about COVID-19. And then the fact that if you share something like 99% of people who get this wind up okay, 99+%, that you almost are accused of being reckless and sharing the wrong thing. Even though that's a fact, sharing it apparently means that you're doing way too much to encourage people to not care. I will say this. This is a study out of London, too. Stress levels could be playing a part in how serious your illness is, and it might even be part of what's killing people who have COVID-19. High levels of stress hormone are a potential factor in the complication of illness. This comes from new research suggested out of London. Cortisol is a hormone produced by the adrenal glands, best known for its role in regulating your body's fight or flight response in stressful situations. It's also important for controlling other bodily functions. Those include metabolism, blood pressure, salt and water balance, and the body's immune system response. Too little or too much can both have dangerous side effects. High levels are particularly dangerous because they can alter the immune system function and increase the risk of infection and or serious illness. In the study, scientists collected blood samples from 535 hospitalized patients and examined the amount of cortisol in their blood and found that 403 of them had COVID-19. When scientists compared those levels of the blood collected compared to anything else between patients with and without COVID-19, they found that patients with the virus had significantly higher levels of cortisol, which makes sense. Of course, if you're taking blood from patients dealing with serious illness, that they would be stressed. But just maybe the narrative as far as our world goes might even increase that fear more. And however crazy it sounds to say this, being capable of trying to believe that you'll be better and reduce the amount of stress you feel while fighting an illness makes you more likely. It certainly doesn't give you any sort of 100% ability any which way, but it makes you more likely to be capable of getting over something. 3 months ago, when we started seeing the wave of COVID-19 patients here in London, according to one of the researchers, we had very little information about how best to triage people. Now, when people arrive, we potentially have another sample marker to use alongside oxygen saturation levels to help us identify which patients need to be admitted immediately and which may not. If you are showing more stress as opposed to less stress, you might need to be admitted sooner. Having an early indicator of which patients may deteriorate more quickly will help us to provide the best care to those individuals as we get them through our doors. That's a really interesting thought as they test for this, as they find different indicators that maybe an illness could be more serious and that stress is one of those things. All right, I promised I'd explain what it is, so I'm going to do it. Moving on to the silly. There's such a thing as a face bra. It is a bizarre new trend. It's not necessarily taking place a lot in our country, although you never know, but it is a lot of other places. The face bra will perform skin-tightening features for your neck, though frequently through frequent use, it will restore the loose and saggy skin and reshape the facial contours to deliver long-term firming results. This is according to the product website, not necessarily any scientist who studied this at all. Get rid of your double chin and slim down your face with the face bra. That's actually the name of the product. No painful diets, no hours on a treadmill, no tedious face exercises needed. We've solved the problem, according to their website. By using the face bra for 40 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week, you'll start noticing chin and face fat reduction with every use. There is no way that anyone could possibly wear this product, which does look like a single cup bra that you put around your face, without everyone in their life commenting on and or making fun of it being on that human's face. You couldn't even find it in somebody's house and be capable of treating it as a normal thing. The ad continues, guys, seriously, at first, this is apparently a testimonial from the ad. Guys, seriously, at first, I was very, very skeptical about this thing, but there's so many great reviews that I decided to go ahead and give it a try, and I've never been more amazed in my entire life. I can literally notice that it works, and also it's really fine lining and refining my jaw, and also my double chin. OMG. From one review, you can't wear it. Nobody could wear this for 40 minutes, 3 to 4 times a day around any other individuals. You'd have to live at home. You'd have to hide it somewhere, the face bra, and not be capable of, again, there's no way. Go look at a picture of it. Maybe we'll put it up on social media so you can see. But the face bra, it's taking over at least Australia and a few other countries by storm because it's slimming down people's faces, reducing the turkey neck. I have a little extra down there. Maybe I'll try it out. Maybe I'll try the face bra and then, immediately surrender to the fact that I can never be taken seriously ever again. One photo of you wearing face bra means in no situation for the rest of your life can you walk into a room and be taken remotely seriously. Yes, that's a hot take. I think it's an accurate take, though. All right, I got to take another break. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. I want to talk about an Amazon delivery driver who went above and beyond for a family in Delaware. She had some weird notes on the package, some weird requests while she delivered it, and this woman captured on video did exactly as she was asked to do. I'll tell you what that was after this.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. Chad is back with you tomorrow. Do not worry. He will be back. Just a deserved vacation for Chad, who's been working real hard. I want to start off by talking about infighting in the Democratic Party, something that I enjoy quite a bit of doing for this segment here because it's hilarious to me. And actually, it's sort of being propped up more by the president. President Donald Trump tweeted yesterday that it would be a big improvement and she would win in response to tagging a article about how AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, may push to challenge Chuck Schumer in the Senate primary. A lot of sentences were just said, some I can't believe. AOC, a beloved side of, I guess, the radical part of the left, is succeeding. She's continuing to succeed on that side to the extent that now there's even a grassroots movement, a push for her to run against Chuck Schumer and become a senator and potentially win. This is a tweet a little while back from the senior advisor to Bernard Sanders' presidential campaign, which to me is just amusing. Just going to say something out loud and should be obvious. The fastest way to speed up the process of changing the corrupt, do-nothing, status quo, protecting culture of the National Democratic Party is for AOC to defeat Chuck Schumer in a Democratic primary in 2022. That is one of the advisors to Sanders. That is surreal. This is surreal to me. The infighting, the attack, the back and forth, and the president throwing his weight behind it, too, must actually probably amuse him along with other things. But yes, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, very much liked. Very much, I guess, the heir apparent to the way of thinking that is a Bernie Sanders way of thinking would be a natural fit, according to many, so that the mere thought of liberal sensation, considering a heavyweight clash between. When did you think that the words heavyweight clash would be stated as far as AOC trying to become a senator? That's the rise of this individual to top of the heap in that side of the party is staggering. It's been a staggering set of events that happened. 2022, she might become a senator. I think she will eventually run for president of the United States, and I think she'll do it relatively soon after she's capable of doing it, which will be in and of itself an interesting world to view, an interesting experience for all of us to have. But AOC, rumored to potentially be taking on Chuck Schumer. As we get closer and closer to that, you'll see the truth or not in that situation. But I just think it's funny that President Donald Trump said that would be a big improvement and that she would win. I wonder if she appreciates his support. I'm guessing the answer is no. All right. I mentioned this earlier. A doorbell camera recorded an Amazon driver following unusual steps. This is in Delaware. The son of a family decided to put on the order. He's 13 years old, by the way. His name's Jacob. That you need to do some additional things when you drop the package off at the house. Do not knock once. Please knock 3 times. Then as soon as you can, after knocking 3 times, scream abracadabra. Maybe make a little magical motion with the fingers and run super fast away from the house. The doorbell camera footage shows the woman doing all of the steps and maybe even having fun while doing it. Thank you is what the family said to the great Amazon delivery woman who followed my son's request. Apparently, my youngest son had put some additional instructions for delivery, and she went along with it. It made all of us smile, though my son should have not maybe done that. Apparently, they didn't even know, which is my other favorite part of the story, is that the kid orders something on Amazon, throws some special instructions, and then probably mom's freaked out when she's hearing abracadabra screamed at her front door. And then, boom, there's an Amazon package. I think a lot more of us should do this, as long as it's, silly and lighthearted and the drivers hopefully play along. This would be a way to brighten our moods. This should have gone viral when we were all more under quarantine and stuck in our houses, because this would have been tremendously fun for so many of us to do. But as the family said, it made us all smile. I do appreciate the driver look closely enough at the instructions to even follow them. Because if you ever done that before, if you ever filled that stuff out, it's not always easy to see where that place is. All right, one last thing. I've had a ball filling in on Chad Benson Show. Chad will be back tomorrow, as I said. But I saw a viral conversation about how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I've actually surprisingly had this conversation before because I know people that aren't sane. But there's a debate as to how exactly you construct the easiest sandwich in the history of sandwiches to make, whether or not you put peanut butter on both sides of the bread before adding jelly. That's right. You don't peanut butter one and jelly one. The debate is, do you peanut butter both and then jelly in the middle so that I guess it stays better? Most people seem to think that it should be peanut butter on one side and jelly on the other. And that is the correct way to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich as taught to you when you were a very small child. But other people on social media, either who just want to argue or maybe, I don't know, actually do it this way, say that that's totally wrong. And even though you're going to spread peanut butter and jelly into the same jar and make a lot of mistakes, okay, you can tell which side of the aisle I'm on. Apparently, some people think it's just the better process. I have to know. I need to know. And this actually would thrill me if social media for the Chad Benson Show is taken over by how people make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, because that's not going to make any sense to Chad when he comes back. But it's a real thing. There's real debate. 9,000 Americans were surveyed and answered that. They also told the survey whether or not they prefer creamy or chunky. 55% of people like the creamy peanut butter, 31% like the chunky, and 4 people don't care. As long as it's peanut butter, it's no big deal. 10% said they've never had it once in their life, not because of allergy, they just never tried it. I need to meet those people, too, who are like, wait, what's peanut butter? I want to meet an adult human who's never heard of it, because that person would shock me more than the person that's putting the two sides together, peanut buttering both pieces, which I still don't understand it. And the fact that social media can take time to debate this is why I sometimes love the internet. I sometimes hate it. I certainly have my problems with social media, but this made me laugh a lot out loud. All right. Craig Collins has filled in on the Chad Benson Show. Chad, like I said, is back tomorrow. He'll be talking about all kinds of things, both important and silly. Probably, obviously, maybe not as silly of things as I've covered at times during my stay here on the show. I'm thrilled to have been here. Everybody have a really great Monday. I hope that you guys, stay safe out there. And to the people living in places like Seattle and or Portland, especially places that might be a little tougher, definitely, I pray for you guys. Stay safe. Chad back tomorrow.
This is The Chad Benson Show.